Hi, Heart Room friends. I hope you guys are doing well. I'm looking forward to seeing you tomorrow for our math lesson. And today we're reading the BFG and we're on the chapter called Dream Catching. So if you have the book at home, you can follow along. We're on page 81. And if you don't have the book at home, you can either just listen, which is what I like to do. And if I'm in the mood, sometimes I like to draw pictures of what I think everything looks like. And Grayson's been doing a pretty awesome job of putting together a BFG book of all of her listenings of the BFG. So here we go, dream catching. The big friendly giant put the suitcase on the ground. He bent down low so that his enormous face was close to Sophie's. From now on, we is keeping as still as winky little miceies, he whispered. Sophie nodded. The misty vapor swirled around her. It made her cheeks damp and left dewdrops in her hair. The BFG opened the suitcase and took out several empty glass jars. He set them ready on the ground with their screw tops removed. Then he stood up very straight. His head was now high up in the swirling mist, and it kept disappearing and then appearing again. He was holding the long net in his right hand. Sophie, staring upwards, saw through the mist that his colossal ears were beginning to swivel out from his head. They began waving gently to and fro. Suddenly the BFG pounced. He leapt high in the air and swung the net through the mist with a great swishing sweep of his arm. Got him, he cried. A jar, quick, quick, quick. Sophie picked up a jar and held it up to him. He grabbed a hold of it. He lowered the net. Very carefully, he tipped something absolutely invisible from the net into the jar. He dropped the net and swiftly clapped one hand over the jar. The top, he whispered. The jar, top, quick. Sophie picked up the screw top and handed it to him. She screwed it on tight, and the jar was closed. The BFG was very excited. He held the jar close to one ear and listened intently. It's a wink squiffer, he whispered with a thrill in his voice. It's even better. It's a fizz wizard. It's a golden fizz wizard. Sophie stared at him. Oh my, he said, holding in the front of the jar. This will be giving some little toddler a very happy night when I is blowing it in. Is it really a good one? Sophie asked. A good one, he cried. It's a golden fizz wizard. It is not often when I is getting one of these. He handed the jar to Sophie and said, Please, be still as a starfish now. I is thinking there may be a whole swarm of fizz wizards up here today. And do kindly stop breathing. It was terribly noisy down there. Oh, hi, Llama. I haven't moved a muscle, Sophie said. Then don't, the BFG answered sharply. Once again, he stood up tall in the mist, holding his net at the ready. Then came the long silence, the waiting, the listening. And at last, with surprising suddenness, came the leap and the swish of the net. Another jar, he cried. Quick, quick, quick. And then the second dream was safely in the jar, and the top screwed down. The BFG held it to his ear. Oh, no, he cried. Oh, mince my maggots. Oh, swipe my swoggles. What's the matter? Sophie asked. It's a troggle humper, he shouted. His voice was filled with fury and anguish. Oh, save our solos, he cried. Deliver us from weasels. The devil is dancing on my dibbler. And there's the BFG catching dreams. And there's Sophie on the ground. She's so tiny, helping to hand him the jars. What are you talking about? Sophie said. The BFG was getting more distressed every moment. Oh, bash my eye bones, he cried, waving the jar in the air. I come all this way to get a lovely golden dream, and what is I catching? Well, what are you catching? Sophie said. I is catching a frightsome troggle humper, he cried. This is a bad, bad dream. It is worse than the bad dream. It is a nightmare. Oh, dear, Sophie said. What will you do with that? I is never, never letting it go, the BFG cried. If I do, then some poor little toddler will be having the most curd-bloodling time. This one is a real Kixie bog thumper. I is exploding it as soon as I get home. Nightmares are horrible, Sophie said. I had one once, and I woke up sweating all over. With this one, you would be waking up screaming all over, the BFG said. This one would make your teeth stand on end. If this one got into you, your blood would be freezing to icicles and your skin would go creeping across the floor. Are you scared, Llama? Oh, it's not real. It's not real. Is it as bad as that? It's worse, cried the BFG. This is a real wopsy grub witcher. You said it was a troggle humper, Sophie told him. It is a troggle humper, cried the exasperated BFG, but it is also a bog thumper and a grob switcher. It is all three riddled into one. Oh, I is so glad I is clutching it tight. Oh, you wicked beastie, you, he cried, holding up the jar and staring into it. Never more is you going to be bunk doodling the poor little human beanie toddlers. Sophie, who was also staring into the glass jar, cried out, I can see it. There's something in there. Of course there is something in there, the BFG said. You was looking at a frightsome trogglehumper. But you told me dreams were invisible. There's always invisible until they is captured, the BFG told her. After that, they is losing a little of their invisibility. We is seeing this one very clearly. Inside the jar, Sophie could see a faint scarlet outline of something that looked like a mixture between a blob of gas and a bubble of jelly. It was moving violently, thrashing against the sides of the jar and forever changing shape. You have to see this. Trogglehumper. Do you see the Trogglehumper? It's wiggling all over the place, Sophie cried. It's fighting to get out. It'll bash itself to bits. The nastier the dream, the angrier it is when it's getting into prison, the BFG said. It is the same as with wild animals. If an animal is very fierce and you is putting it in a cage, it will make a tremendous rumpeldumpus. If it is a nice animal like a cockatoodle or a frogglefrump, it will sit quietly, and dreams do the exact same thing. This one is a nasty, fierce, bog-trottling nightmare. Just look at him splashing himself against the glass. It's quite frightening, Sophie cried. I would be hating to get this one inside me on some darksome night, the BFG said. So would I, Sophie said. The BFG started putting the bottles back into the suitcase. Is that all? Sophie asked. Are we going? I is so upset by this troggle-humping, bog-thumping crob-switcher, the BFG said, that I is not wishing to go on. Dream catching is finished for today. Soon Sophie was back in the waistcoat pocket, and the BFG was racing home as fast as he could go. When at last they emerged out of the mist and came again on the hot yellow wasteland, all of the other giants were sprawled out on the ground, fast asleep. So that's the end of our chapter today. Tomorrow we'll read A Troggle-Humper for the Flesh Lump Eater. Ooh, I wonder what that's going to be about. Well, I hope you have a wonderful day. Oh, say hi to Zoe. Hi. And we'll see you tomorrow.